Often called floating cities, cruise ships have become massive, not just in sheer size, but also in cost of construction. The Allure of the Seas, for instance, one of the largest cruise ships in the world, cost $1.5 billion to build, making it as expensive as the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the world's largest skyscraper. But unlike the Burj Khalifa, which took 6 years to build, the Allure of the Seas was constructed from start to finish in just 11 months and 18 days. So how is a megastructure of this scale actually built? And how do you go from this to this in just 11 months? That's exactly what we'll be looking at today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing for more weekly traveling content. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. It all starts with a sketchboard. Cruise lines initially come up with a very rough design of the new ship, including its size, number of passengers, and certain unique features they want to have on board. With the proposal in hand, they then make their way to shipbuilding companies to see which one would be the best fit for the vessel. As there are only 4 main cruise ship builders in the world, there's not much to choose from anyways, and the final decision usually comes down to logistical constraints such as price, speed, and the size of the shipyard. Once the initial order is made and design choices have been finalized, we get to the steel cutting ceremony. This is when the shipyard first starts molding steel into thousands of smaller pieces that will end up making up the main structure of the ship. The festive ceremony marks the start of about 6 months of steel cutting and is usually when cruise lines start increasing their PR efforts and first release details about onboard features to the public. Next comes the exciting part. About 1 year before passengers start to board a vessel for its maiden voyage, we have the keel laying or coin laying ceremony. This is officially the start of the ship's construction, and it's when smaller pieces start to be assembled to make the lower hull of the ship. By tradition, this is also when the cruise line puts a gold coin into the lowest block of the vessel, symbolizing good luck for everyone that shall sail on her. At this point, the construction usually occurs in 2 separate buildings. In one area, engineers are starting to weld and wire up pieces of steel into small sections. 8 of these sections are then combined to make a so-called block. You can imagine it as being a fireproof metal box the size of about 4 tennis fields. Then these blocks are transported to the main dry dock area, where they are assembled and put together by a large crane, 1 layer at a time, resembling somewhat of a jigsaw puzzle or a Lego building. Now, apart from these metal boxes, the shipyard also installs the ship's engines and power tanks, and some overhead wiring, plumbing, and ventilation. But that's about it. While the exterior is starting to resemble a real cruise ship, the interior remains mostly empty and dull. Now, you might wonder, where are all the cabins? How are they possibly going to add thousands of staterooms into this metal structure? Well, cabins are all individually pre-assembled offshore in a very much industrialized factory. Every cabin, essentially a numbered metal box, gradually gets equipped with a bathroom, a bed, a sofa, a TV, and all the other amenities you can imagine. A crane then actually lifts each fully furnished cabin up and slots it into place one by one. Pretty impressive, right? And because each cabin is literally a metal box, it makes its walls and ceilings magnetic. Now, this has 2 purposes. Firstly, as each cabin is made out of metal, this reduces the risk of a fire hazard, something you don't want to have on a ship. But also secondly, as cabins are magnetic, it helps slot them in more easily and removes almost all space between cabins' walls. This is essential as even a small miscalculation or fraction of an inch of extra space between cabins can lead to huge problems. For one, the wiring and plumbing might no longer fit the position of the cabin, but also another cabin might altogether no longer fit into this block, which would be quite an expensive debacle. Once the cabins are hopefully correctly inserted, it's time to furnish the common spaces. Truckloads of tables, chairs, and carpets start filling up the ship's interior, finally making it look like a real cruise ship. Meanwhile, the exterior is also getting its finishing touches. For one, the ship's hull gets painted and the vessel's name gets inscribed. The azipods and other navigational features get installed on the bottom of the ship, and outdoor attractions are added to the top leader decks. That includes water slides, roller coasters, floating bars, and sometimes even an extremely large giraffe. Now, slowly, the ship is getting ready for its big moment. Float out. It's when all the ship's workers, engineers, and designers come together to watch their ship finally touch water for the first time and actually float. For some vessels that were built in an indoor dry dock, it's also the first time they see sunlight as they exit the shipyard in quite a spectacular way. The ship then goes on sea trials, usually lasting 1 to 3 days. There, officers and representatives from insurance companies test the vessel's seaworthiness, do some daring maneuvers, and just get used to the ship's navigational abilities overall. After some finishing touches back at the shipyard, the brand new vessel gets filled with crew members from around the world. The ship then makes its way to its home port, where passengers will be waiting to board in about 7 days. This short trip is often called a shakedown voyage, as crew members scramble to get the ship ready and cleaned up for passengers. Now comes the big finale. With often heavy news coverage and marketing hype, the brand new cruise ship arrives in its new home port for the first time. There, it might even be welcomed by enthusiastic locals and onlookers. Once the ship arrives, the often glamorous official naming ceremony begins. Cruise lines usually get famous celebrities or royalty to be the ship's godmother that blesses the vessel and smashes a bottle of champagne on its hull. The superstition goes if the bottle doesn't break, it's bad luck. Now, while researching, we came across this interesting video of the official naming ceremony of the Costa Concordia, the disgraced cruise ship that ended up looking like this. Just watch as the godmother attempts to smash the champagne bottle. Make of that what you will. But let's suppose the champagne bottle does smash, the cruise ship is officially named, and passengers make their way onto the vessel. This officially marks the end of the construction phase of a cruise ship and the start of a spectacular journey around the globe. We hope you found this video informative. If you did, please consider subscribing for more weekly traveling content or check out some of our other videos linked below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep cruising.